Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel, and today I wanted to talk about Fate Zero. I have not actually talked about this series in general at all, even though I watched a ton of it very quickly and I loved it because of the timing, but you can watch my video about that if you want to know what I mean. But I just thought, like, this is a series I really want to analyze a lot, and like I might even go back and rewatch because there were so many interesting characters. For this video, I really wanted to focus on Emiya Kiritsugu and Irisviel von Einzbern because I think the relationship is so interesting, and I also think it's a very toxic relationship, and I think sometimes it's like helpful and interesting to like see toxic relationships so you can avoid one or just to like, I don't know, the dynamics are very interesting. And it's funny because I did really root for them watching Fate Zero. I had not seen oh, by the way, huge spoilers for Fate Zero. Just Fate Zero, but I'm just gonna say for the future show and movies I watched, I didn't know what was gonna happen in Fate Zero at all. Like, this was the first one I watched, so yeah, I was really rooting for them. And I was kind of like disappointed. Obviously I had a feeling like, oh, this relationship is pretty toxic, but for me, with context, like, I was pregnant at the time, and when I started watching it and when I finished it, I was like watching my daughter on leave, so I think I really felt for Irisviel, you know, and like the fact she was having a daughter and all this stuff, and so that definitely made me a little more biased towards her and Kiritsugu Emiya. But also I just thought that like they were like very likable characters, and yeah. So anyways, for me, I think that I kind of started filming this the other day and I decided to redo it because I sort of talked about this but not in depth enough. I feel like Irisviel von Einzbern is definitely like an empath. I think she puts to an extreme extent, she puts everyone before herself, and it's interesting how she really is sort of like a great metaphor for an empath. Like, she literally, for the Einzbern family, was created as a clone to literally like sacrifice herself from the beginning. So that's an interesting metaphor, I think, for what empaths sometimes try to do is they sacrifice themselves. They have not good boundaries, like, not all empaths. I mean, if you're a empath who needs to do work, right, who like is used to being in toxic relationships, you know, she doesn't have very good boundaries. And so I think it's very like sad to watch her and her relationship with Emiya Kiritsugu, because I do think they genuinely love each other. I think in general, like, empaths, when they're not very healthy, tend to get in relationships with people with personality disorders like sociopath, narcissism, whatever. I actually don't think Emiya Kiritsugu has any of those things, but I do think he has an avoidant attachment style. And I think Irisviel has a anxious attachment style. So I'm gonna kind of talk about that a little bit because unless you also majored in psychology in college, you probably don't know what that is. It's not like I'm cool or anything for knowing that, I just thought I'd explain it. So anyways, so I think Emiya Kiritsugu has the avoidant attachment style because he kind of is always pulling away from von Einzbern, and I think he gets kind of like triggered by Einzbern. And what happens in an avoidant attachment style is when you kind of care about someone, right, you actually tend to close off or avoid, or like like you were basically, okay, so there's three types of attachment style. There's avoidant, secure, and anxious. And when you have a secure attachment style, it basically means all your needs were met when you were a kid and an infant and all of that, right? So you feel secure in your relationships. when you have an avoidant, basically that means your needs were not always met, and the way you dealt with it is that you avoided. So you closed off your feelings, you ran away. Like, you were the kid who didn't really like cry if you were upset and that kind of a thing, right? Because you were taught that like it doesn't help to show your feelings. I'm not going to get my needs met. If you have anxious, you kind of went in the opposite direction, and so your needs weren't met, and so you start like crying a lot, or you like just show lots of signs of like what some people would call it, I'm not saying it is, but some people would call it clingy. But basically you just need lots of affection to feel secure in your relationships. And so I think between those two, and what tends to happen is avoidant and anxious attachment styles tend to sort of subconsciously, as in like you're not consciously thinking about it, it's not really like even a choice, but you just tend to be attracted to each other. And that's like one of the things that a lot of people work through, I think, in, again, not a therapist, but a lot of people work through in therapy, I think, is figuring out how to deal with those attachment styles in a healthy way. So anyways, going back, segueing back to the actual anime, I think, yeah, Kiritsugu has very avoidant attachment style, and you can see this as you see his story with his mentor as well. It's almost like, I know he always wanted to sacrifice everything for the good of all, but you have to wonder if part of that was his, like, he didn't want to deal with his feelings, he didn't want to really like get close to anyone kind of a thing. And it's unfortunate because this isn't a spoiler, I'm just going to say that later on, past this show, not a spoiler for that show, I'm just going to say that like they don't show a lot of any future, like how he would interact in relationships. So that was kind of disappointing. So I don't know if he ever got better, but yeah, I think avoidant for sure. And then Irisviel, she definitely is anxious, I think, because she's always sort of like wanting to be, not that there's anything, again, nothing wrong with this. She's always wanting to be close to Kiritsugu, right? And she's like, oh, I'll do anything for you, Kiritsugu, right? She kind of wants that emotional closeness that I don't know if he's, at least at this point, able to really meet for her. So it really is like kind of a sad story, because like they are a very cute couple. They have like the cutest kid, and like they have some really like sweet conversations in the anime. But yeah, they just, I think that's like the classic push and pull of those two attachment styles, is like you just can't really like, someone has to like work on their issues. Either Irisviel would have to start kind of like being like, okay, I'm fine on my own, like I can do this, like everything's fine, kind of a thing. She'd have to regulate her feelings more, or Emiya would have to learn to feel his feelings and recognize them at all, I think, for them to really have a healthy relationship. But yeah, man, the ending where von Einzbern, Irisviel sacrifices herself and like leaves her kid behind, and like Emiya has to like know that she's gone. Like that whole thing was just very tragic. As you guys know, if you watch the channel, I find that very interesting. I don't know why. And very, very, very intriguing. And then you add Saber into it, and Saber was almost like the she was almost like the emotional support person in that relationship, which I do think if you have like a toxic relationship, there's always ends up being like a third party involved. In this case, it was Saber, who was kind of like the emotional damage. But yeah, I thought obviously it was such a good show. Again, I always say this, I want to analyze every character, so maybe I'll get around to analyzing more. Let me know what you guys think. I obviously had a really soft spot for Irisviel after watching the Fate Zero series. And so, again, without spoilers, I think going forward, I was very in her corner as we went into, I went into Fate's Day Night Unlimited Blade Works, and then I watched the movies. So I still haven't seen like Saber's story yet. So I need to maybe do that. I don't know. Let me know if I should watch the old version too. Thank you guys for watching. Consider liking and subscribing if you enjoy these kind of videos. Feel free to leave me requests. I have a decent amount now, which is awesome. And I will try to get to as many as I can. So yeah, thank you guys, and I'll see you in the next video.